this webinar today. We're very honored to have you all with us. Thank you so much for giving out of your precious time. We really appreciate it. Jazakallah khairan. So welcome to today's webinar. The webinar today will be about examining our roles as a community by listening to the Palestinian psychologists who will give us a ground perspective with regards to the situation in Gaza and West Bank and Palestine and Palestine, inshallah. We have invited three very prominent mental health professionals, psychologists and psychiatrists, Dr. Yasser Abu Jamai, Dr. Denise Zia Berthe, and also Dr. Iman Farajallah. We're very honored to have you all with us, dear excellent colleagues. So let's now present our panelists for today as well, so that they also will be presented to all of you so you know who we are listening to. Dr. Yasser is a psychiatrist and the director general of the Gaza Community Mental Health Program. He has lived in Gaza and Palestine since 2000 and has been working at the Gaza Community Mental Health Program, the GCMHP, since 2004. His research has focused on the impact of ongoing violence and the 50-year-long blockade Gaza on the physical and psychological health of children and their caregivers and the connection between public health and human rights. He has received several honors, including recognition in 2015 from the Said Foundation for his work in developing the mental health sector in Gaza and the GCMHP Crisis Response Plan after the 2014 war on Gaza, the Alumnus of the Year Award from the University of Birmingham in the UK in 2016, and the Community Resilience Award from the Rebuilding Alliance in 2021. His 2023 Trauma and Hope nationwide speaking tour has been organized by the Boston-based Gaza Mental Health Foundation. So he has visited the US several times, and if I'm not mistaken, also European countries as well. Now, Dr. Yasser is currently in Gaza, and I just spoke with him an hour ago. He said he will do his best to join, but as you guys, I'm sure you guys are aware, since a couple of days ago, the internet connection is totally shut down, and the phone connections as well in Gaza. So hopefully he can join. If not, I will share a recording with Dr. Yasser where he will present a little bit in 12, 13 minutes about his work and the situation on the ground in Gaza. We did a webinar 2 years ago where Dr. Yasser also joined. So I'm going to play a clip from what he said during that webinar, inshallah. But hopefully he is with us now. Sister Fatima, Sister Aisha, Sister Zahra, Sister Sarah, or Dr. Seema, or Sister Eileen, or Sister Sophia, could you guys see if Dr. Yasser is in the webinar? If you guys see him, then make him a co-host as well, inshallah. Jazakallah khairan, dear sister, dear colleagues, you're all doing an amazing job. Our next panelist will be also Dr. Denise. Dr. Denise is a licensed clinical psychologist in Pennsylvania with a PhD, and the state of and she is also a licensed clinical psychologist in the state of Palestine for over 25 years with a specialty in trauma, torture, oppression and war, interpersonal violence, and indigenous populations. She has written over 18 published professional articles, 3 book chapters, and presented on over 500 occasions domestically and internationally related to her topics of specialty. She's a forensic psychologist who has evaluated over 1,200 individuals and served as an expert witness in cases involving criminal, family, immigration, and human rights law. She is currently the executive director of the Peaceful Families Project, which is actually a project that ISIP will have a partnership with, which is an honor. And this is a 21-year-old national project in the U.S. addressing family-based violence in Muslim communities in the U.S. With international impact as well. And Dr. Denise is fluent in Spanish. So, ¿cómo estás, Dr. Denise? ¿Cómo qué tal? And English, and has a moderate fluency in French and Arabic. My Spanish is mediocre, but inshallah, maybe we can also speak. Dr. Yeah. And last but not least, we also have Dr. Iman, who currently works as a psychologist at Hyde Street Community Services, Inc., serving the underserved population that suffers from mental illness, PTSD, and war trauma and addiction. She's the founder and the president of Iman Network, a nonprofit that focuses on mental health, education, empowerment, and relief Dr. Iman is also researching and developing treatments for mental health illnesses from Islamic approaches for mental health professionals that tailor to the specific needs of the Muslim population. She also provides training on PTSD and trauma to psychology students in the Gaza Strip. And additionally, Dr. Iman produced a documentary named Gaza's Children, Innocent Lost. She is currently in the process of publishing a book and producing a documentary that addresses the psychological impacts of war on the children in Palestine. So, just briefly before I invite our panelists to join, in the breakout rooms, the discussions will be based upon what we have heard from the panelists and what are some of the ideas that we can take to help with the situation in Palestine, inshallah. Please keep all of our beloved Palestinian brothers and sisters in your du'as, and we will also do some du'as in the end of the webinar. Please forgive me and forgive us for any shortcomings, and make dua for us as a movement as well. And we will also share the feedback form after webinars in the end of the webinar, inshallah. So let me stop sharing my screen, inshallah, and let me just briefly go to just one second, brothers and sisters. We have some technical issues here, but we have Dr. Yasser with us. Dr. Yasser, are you there?
Dr. Yasser is here. MashaAllah.
Yes, I am available. I am here. I think my video is off, so if you allow me to turn it on.
Yes, please go ahead, Dr. Yasser.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, brothers and sisters and friends and colleagues. I'm really glad to be able to join this meeting today organized by the ISIP. Let me begin by thanking the organizers, Jazakumullahu khairan. And as brother Sayed said, we just got back the connection, the internet connection, about 12 hours ago. We were in a blackout for almost 24 hours, but now the internet is back. So I hope that I'll be able to join you for quiet and give some quite decent information about what happens in Gaza Strip.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Yasser. Go ahead. We wanted you to start, so please go ahead and give us an introduction from your, what's happening right now on the ground. And so please go ahead. The floor is yours. And
thank you very much. It's already 3 weeks, and I would give you the first-hand information. Like 2 days ago, it was announced that almost half of the buildings in the whole Gaza Strip are either totally destroyed or partially destroyed. We speak about a population of 2.3 million people. Half of the population are children, 48% are children. We speak about more than 1.1 million children who live in Gaza Strip. As you know, a couple of weeks ago, the occupation ordered people who live in the northern areas of Gaza Strip, that's in Gaza City and Beit Hanun and Beit Lahia, to move towards the southern of Wadi Gaza, or the Gaza Valley. That was an order to send 1.1 million people to the south, and it was given, people were given 24 hours to do that. Now, earlier than that, more than 350,000 people were already in shelters. And what we say by shelters, we speak of basically UNRWA schools that people think or feel that they are not going to be attacked. And UNRWA announced a week ago that in its 150 locations, there are more than 600,000 people. Now imagine that those are primarily UNRWA schools, which are equipped just to be a school, with few with few toilets, with a small, let me say, water reservoir, and that caused a lot of difficulties and a lot of problems. Now, let's just keep in mind that this is not the first time that Gaza was exposed to the current event. Prior to the 3 weeks, there was a research that was made by Save the Children in 2022 it estimated that 80% of the children in Gaza Strip have some sort of psychological, emotional problem. And the figure was a follow-up after another study that was made in 2018 that found 55% of the children having those emotional issues. So it was an increase from 55 to 80%, and that could be attributed to the continuous attacks in Gaza Strip. Today, as of October 2023, we are just going through the fifth largest scale military operation since the year 2014. And this has a huge impact on the population. Now, let's keep in mind that those 2.3 million people, 2/3 of them are refugees who are Palestinians, who were uprooted from their homes, from their lands before the year 48. So you live in a very small, crowded area of about 365 square kilometers or 140 miles. 2/3 of the populations are refugees. 1/2 of the population are children. Poverty rate is 53%. Unemployment rate is around 46%. People below the age of 30, their unemployment rate goes as high as 65%. Women below the age of 30, the unemployment rate is above 80%. The figures over the last decades are really staggering. They are getting worse and worse with time. Now, when it comes to power supply, when it comes to water, the United Nations announced in 2012 that Gaza is not going to be inhabitable anymore by the year 2020. In 2018, another announcement was made saying that they were perhaps too much ambitious and that Gaza was already not inhabitable. Prior to that tax, the power supply was alternating between 8 hours on and 8 hours off. Water, 97% of water was not good for drinking. The psychological impact of the recurrent attacks was extremely visible in terms not only of the children suffering, but visible also in the terms of the feeling of nothing is going to change, nothing is going to improve, some sort of hopelessness, and at the same time some sense of helplessness. Why helplessness? Because people feel that they have very few things that they can do in order to change the current reality. Anyway, for 3 weeks now, the development is that since day 4 of the attacks, we have no electricity at all. We have zero power supply. We can only charge our mobile phones through just if you have some solar panels or if you have the small private generators that can generate some power supply. Unfortunately, these rely on fuel, as you know, and no fuel is in Gaza since 3 weeks. When it comes to water, Israel announced from day one that they are going to cut the water that is pumped into Gaza Strip, causing another catastrophe with already problematic water supply. Now, when you look at the bombardment and the attacks, again, if you remember, I said that more than half of the houses in the Gaza Strip are already totally destroyed or partially destroyed. That meant that hundreds of thousands of people will not find places to go to. At the moment, according to UNRWA and different agencies, more than 1.5 million people are internally displaced people. The number of the wounded people as of today are 20,000 people. The number of the killed people, the martyrs, are already more than 8,000 people, including more than 3,500 children, more than 2,000 women. And there are more than 1,500 people under the rubble, including more than 1,000 children. And with this continuous bombardment, the spread is fear is everywhere. The spread of being terrorized is everywhere. Even people who were ordered to go to the southern areas of the Gaza Valley, for about a week, the bombardment of the southern area was very intensified. In many of the days, the number of the people who were killed were 600 to 700 people per day. So you can imagine how would that feel. Now, this is not the only problem, but the biggest other problem is that the hospitals are not capable of operating. As of 3 days ago, 11 hospitals were out of service. And that's because of the lack of power supply, because of the lack of fuel. A lot of the injured people had to gun some suturing without, or stitches without anesthetics. We have a big problem with anesthetics. There are no anesthetics almost at the hospitals. And there are a lot of issues with the available antibiotics. There are a lot of issues, health related issues that are, when we talk about the number of children who are in those shelters, those schools, we speak on average 3,500 to 4,000 people per school, per honorable school. Those largely sleep on the floor or sleep on just simple mattresses. A lot of them are children and already seen a lot of infectious diseases that are like taking place, mainly so far chickenpox. But now people start to talk about some diarrhea, gastrointestinal problems. In 2014, we had about 500,000 internally displaced people. And then we had at the, like maybe 3 weeks after the beginning of the attacks, we started to encounter scabies that was present in some of the schools. So there is a huge hazard, health hazards, not only on the people who are at the hospitals or people who are waiting for the operations. There are, by the way, 7,000 injured people that they need medical attention, but they are not giving the needed priority because they are more working on the life-saving on the life-saving cases. So the health system was announced 2 days ago as almost not working or absolutely collapsed. Now I'm referring to most of the data to 2 days ago because the day before yesterday evening, Israel decided to cut all the communications, which means the mobile phones.
Dr. Yasser, I think your connection is frozen. Is it only me, the brothers and sisters and participants, or do you guys hear Dr. Yasser?
All of us.
I don't hear him.
Oh, okay. Let's give Dr. Yasser like 30 seconds and see if his connection will be fixed or not. Dr. Yasser? So in the meanwhile, while Dr. Yasser, we will bring Dr. Yasser with us again. Allow me to then ask that Dr. Denise, if we have you there. Let me just bring the pen to Dr. Denise. So Dr. Denise, welcome. Well, hopefully Dr. Yasser's connection will be better soon. But we got some great inputs from him and from the ground perspective. Would you like to continue from what Dr. Yasser was speaking about and maybe share your reflections also as a
Yes, Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I want to thank the almost, over 300 listeners here and your organization. One of the things that we frequently talk about in Palestine is the silence of our friends, right? That even within the Muslim community, certainly within Muslim nations, we do not get response. So being here with 342 Muslims from across the world is very important to us. We are very grateful for that. We are very relieved to know that what is happening to us is not happening in silence, that we have the Muslim Ummah with us. So I first of all thank all of you for that, and I thank your organization as well. I want to talk a little bit, and I'm of course very humbled. I cannot follow, someone who is with their feet in Gaza right now. Their reality is really unbelievable. It is incomprehensible. And I will talk about this being the reaction for Muslims in non-affected places, how difficult it is to hear that, right, spiritually and psychologically, to just be bombarded, literally bombarded with this information and feeling like there's nothing that we can do in our hands. And I understand that both psychologically and spiritually, the pain of that and the movement, the wanting to do something. Of course, in the West Bank, one of the things that was not on my bio, I don't know how it did not, is I'm actually a professor at Jamiat al-Najah, which is the National University of Palestine. We have the only program in clinical psychology at the moment across the West Bank. Although our colleagues, of course, in Al-Quds and Dirset have programs in community psychology and other kinds of psychology. So I want to talk a little bit about the unique experiences and struggles within the West Bank. I'm not going to focus on numbers and things like that. I will, of course, mention that we have had 114 murders within the past 2.5 weeks, that we have had 1,500 individuals arrested. And that's along with the 7,000 that are already detained within Israeli prisons, and that is not mentioning those, of course, who are held without any kind of charge whatsoever. So I want to talk a little bit about the unique experience of individuals in the West Bank, but also Palestinians who are in the declared state of Israel. I have students, friends, and family. Unfortunately, my feet at the moment, I was home in July. One of the things, and I think it's helpful to understand the situation of occupation as a whole, because we talked a little bit this morning, we are not always being bombed, right? Occupation is not just the wall, it's the inability to travel, it's the inability. So in my case, I was removed twice from the West Bank against my will, with my children, with leaving my home, leaving everything. So it is also the inability to make decisions about our own lives. It's the inability. My feet are in the United States right now. I would do anything to be at home. That's where I would rather be. It is the inability to be where we want to do the work that we want to do as a professor, running, being part of a program, only being able to be with my feet on the ground, and a lot of times paying $10,000 bonds to be able to go home for 30 days under surveillance, and all of these kinds of things are also part of the reality of occupation. So I want to talk about that as well. When we talk about the individuals in the West Bank, really this this past year has been horrific in terms of the increase in violence, the increase of settlement violence, the increase of incursions into refugee camps, the incursions into Al-Aqsa. We don't talk very often about the danger of Palestinians living within the declared state of Israel. My students right now are not going out. They are terrified that they will be victims of street violence in the Israeli side as well. So while our hearts 100% are with Gaza, and then this separation, because I even the title of this, I was a little concerned, because Gaza and the West Bank are all Palestine. We are one people. We are not different people. We are one people. So the idea of watching the suffering of your sisters and brothers so close, but you cannot touch them, you can't get to them. All of these things playing a part within our reality with our feet in the West Bank. Of course, having no comparison to what's happening in Gaza in the moment. I want to talk about, one of my students wrote a beautiful essay for a mental health day, which was a couple of days into the siege. And I think it's important for all of you to hear. So what she said is, you are worried about our mental health, but we are worried about the mental health of you all, both the declared state of Israel, but also the West, because we know where our hearts are, we know where our faith are. You are living with the cognitive dissonance of allowing and watching the genocide of a people, knowing that the only way that you can watch that and not do anything about that is to become psychopathological, right? Is to become a sociopath. Because how can you watch what is happening to us and not do anything, right? So our concern is not for our mental health, it's for your mental health. Because our heart, we know, yes, there are moments of fear, yes, there are moments of distress, but we are more concerned about you in the West, who can sit in a safe place and watch what is happening and not do anything. And I think that's, one of the things that we always say, Palestinians teach life. And while we are grateful for the outpouring of understanding and, the desire for help from our sisters and brothers across the diaspora, but that you also watch Palestinians and listen, because it is not only waiting to be saved, but really there is so much to be learned from people on the ground, from the way that everyday life is managed in the West Bank and even in Gaza. The idea of praying with faith, not knowing, right, not understanding. Every day I pray, and my prayer is, help me to understand, because I believe, but my heart is heavy, right? And we also don't talk about the spiritual questioning that comes from watching so much destruction, so much injustice, right? So that even prayer is an act of resistance. Even prayer is an act of resilience in the face of the reality of what is happening. I do want to talk about sort of what our folks are feeling hopeless, but we are very clear that what are we called to do as Muslims in the face of oppression, right? We are first called to stop with our hands what we can stop with our hands. So that means, and I say this quietly because everything goes into my file of being allowed back home, but we stop buying, we stop with our hands, we stop supporting in any way that we can. If we are in front of oppression, we stop with our hands. And then what we do, we stop with our mouths. And I have been so grateful to see so many of you posting and stopping with your mouths what you can, posting information, posting, going out to the streets. We stop as Muslim oppression with our mouth. And then when we can do no other, we hold in our hearts, right? We hold in our hearts that this is oppression and this is not okay. So I thank all of you for doing those actions and pray for the strength for you to have more. I also want to say, honestly, I speak from my own experience. I do not speak for all of Palestine. I don't speak for all of the West Banks. I do not speak for every Muslim. So keep in mind that I'm speaking from my own experience, what I have seen, what I have lived. Kaman, as our brother said, if there is error in what I say, this error is mine. It is not of the people or of Allah, for sure. I want to talk a little bit about this idea of trauma, right? And what our response should be. So we talked a lot about, there has been, so one is that that within Palestine, we also have a mental health professional growth. We are working, we have university programs, we have licensure, we have all of these beautiful things. And we have many very experienced mental health providers who know the situation very well. So there is some discomfort with the idea of opening the floodgates and having mental health professionals from all over. This, unfortunately, the mental health system in Palestine, in the West Bank, and Gaza as well, has been run by non-Palestinians, right? So we have many international organizations. Many times they are in charge of the agenda, and many times that's about trauma. You have to understand that in the West Bank, we have trauma, of course, we have trauma, but we also have autism. We have, regular kinds of family conflicts. We have other kinds of things that need to be addressed. When the international community takes over the mental health system in a country and focuses it all on trauma, because that is what makes them uncomfortable, there are so many sectors of our community that are also not receiving the help that they need. And that's why we work really hard to ensure that the mental health system in Palestine is run by Palestinians, that it is integrated, that it is really where the need is, because people want to come in, they want to talk about trauma. The community does not necessarily, that is not always where the need is. So we need to keep that in mind as well. We talk even about the idea of PTSD. Some of the first studies that we did in the West Bank, to be honest, and to the day, we don't find Western defined PTSD. We find, of course, long-term long-term effects of living under trauma, but it does not look like, crying and hiding under the bed and all of these kinds of things, because for much of our population, this is not surprising. So part of trauma is, right, something that is outside of the regular experience. This is not outside of our regular experience. This is the experience from the day that you are born. So it is not surprising. Yes, there are long-term effects, but it is not surprising. It is not, it looks different, trauma within those situations. So we want to make sure that we are not using Western-based ideas to explain what is happening within our communities, right? There is fatigue for sure. There is a lack of hope of the future for sure. But the things that you call trauma within that Western definition may not show up. And that doesn't mean that there are not effects, but it also means that you need to be careful when you are with your heart wanting to go in and make a difference, that you are listening to the folks on the ground, that you are listening to the models that we have been using within our own context, for sure. So I want to make sure that the information is clear. And I want to talk also about the strength. My students, to be honest, are not sitting at home watching TV. I have gotten every single student that I have has rewritten their thesis in the past month, because there is very little, they're unable to go out. We are locked in. And people are doing things. So the idea that as Palestinians, we are here waiting to be saved by the outside is not true. We get up every day, we are working every day, we are writing, we are managing, we are doing what we can. So exactly, this is not PTSD, this is just the everyday life, right? So I want you to understand that there is hope and strength within the territories as well. It is not, it is more painful, to be honest. I would much rather be home than to be here, because to be in the United States watching and not being able to do anything is so painful. When you are on the ground, there is always something to do. So I want you to understand that, folks, the pain that you're feeling is real. Bas kaman, there is hope in movement, in action, and all of those kinds of things, right? So we are not also giving into this guilt of we should be watching all the time, we should be under stress all of the time. If we do that as a population, as a Muslim Ummah, we will get tired, we will become hopeless, and we will not have the strength to go on. One of the things that we learn in Palestine is resistance is existence. And that is existence psychologically as well. So that means when we laugh, we laugh. When we eat, we eat. When we hug our children, we hug our children with all of the hope that we have. So I want to make sure that is heard as well. There has been a lot of talk about teletherapy for Gaza, for the West Bank. I have made some public statements about this because, again, the kids in Gaza need us to stop the bombing for them. They don't. What will you say? Wallah, what will you say if you pick up that phone? Psychological help is important, but not while the knife is still in the wound. Right? We need to, as folks in the Western diaspora, we need to be speaking to our governments. We need to be putting international pressure. We need to stop the bombing. There is no way psychologically to stop the pain while it is occurring. So I want to make sure that is clear, right? We want to have some hope, no matter how small. We want to, we also need to know that, and even as I speak in terror, because I know that my computer is watched, and that anything I say will be used against me. So when we talk about teletherapy, know that there is no confidentiality. So even with your best intentions, the idea of calling someone in Gaza, calling someone in the West Bank, know that that is not safe for them. We know that within our own mental health systems, many times are raided, many times our files are taken, because psychology is in fact a weapon, right? And is in fact this, our strength is problematic for the occupation. So they go in, they do look for psychological files, they do look for information. So we know that while yes, therapy on the ground sometimes is needed, we also know that the idea of teletherapy may not be the best response in this moment, because of the safety, right? Because of the difficulty in maintaining really the safety of folks on the ground. So we talk about those things. We also talk about, and again, as outside professionals, going to the experts on the ground, which is everyone, right? For those of you who have not lived in occupation, I know it is unbelievable, it is incredible, it is painful. When you are offering to do services for folks in that situation, for us, it is not surprising, it is not unusual. Yes, it's painful, but to have to sort of process through, a psychologist, you're the person who is helping you having to process through their trauma is probably not helpful. And that is one of the reasons why you really need to think before you offer services. Is this something that you are qualified to do, not by licensure, but by experience? Because otherwise it becomes, it is the client that is giving comfort to the psychologist. So all of these things we want, even with the best intention, and we are so grateful for those best intentions. One is that we want you in the West to use your power in the West to stop the bombing, because no mental health intervention can do anything while there is current horrific violence. Number two, we invite you as mental health professionals to come work with us when it is not the time of bombing, when it is the regular time. Come learn about the many projects that we have, the many issues we have. Again, autism, we have schizophrenia, we have regular kinds of things that really need, because unfortunately all of the international support goes to the idea of trauma. We need you for all of the kinds of things. We have, parenting issues, we have domestic violence, we have all of those kinds of things. And then we also, of course, ask for prayer, because we know that this is where our strength comes from. So I don't know, brother, if there is questions that I did not answer that you have for me.
Mashallah. I think you answered all the questions. I think that the whole aspect of how we as an international community can be at service is a very important aspect. And I think also with respect to your inputs, because you have the ground perspective, it makes us as an international community, our efforts to be at service for you guys and for the Palestinian brothers and sisters more efficient and sufficient, inshallah. Because I think, as you say, all of us have great intentions, but we're not there. We're not living the daily life of the occupation, right? And sometimes we could also, unintentionally, I think, and I'm just self-critical, first of all, this is just criticism to myself, that we might mystify things sometimes, and it's like almost like another world, another, dimension. But as you say, people have daily lives. People also have their studies to do, as your students are doing in your university. People have their exams to pass. So that's daily life, and you cope with it. But of course, it's a very tough situation. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for all of for you and for your family, and also for all of our beloved brothers and sisters in Palestine. And please forgive us for saying Gaza and West Bank like it's not the same country. Of course, it's the same country, but this is good that you give us this insights, Dr. Denise, because we might subconsciously, without even recognizing ourselves, revisiting some talking points that are not for the best of the Palestinian people, so because this psychological warfare that is right now, seen in the mainstream narrative is real, and the anti-Palestinian sentiments, the anti-Arab sentiments, the Islamophobic sentiments are real. And we as Muslims, and of course we have a lot of people joining today that are non-Muslims. It could be Palestinian Christians or Palestinian Jews, or people from other faith tradition, or even people that are not religious that are here to listen to you guys. I think that as people that are in solidarity with the Palestinian people, we need to be mindful to not revisit or subconsciously normalize talking points that are not congruent with the will of the Palestinian people and for the best of the Palestinian people. So no, I think your answers were terrific. I appreciate what you mentioned also, Dr. Denise, with regards to the teletherapy. As ISIP, the International Students of Islamic Psychology, many of us are mental health professionals. People are feeling helpless. They want to help. And then it's like, how do you help? And then you come with a good intention. And I've seen many amazing, initiatives by many of us, but then if we don't make it congruent with the ground perspective and what you're giving us, then we might subconsciously do something that will not be of benefit for our beloved Palestinian brothers and sisters. So it's good to know that the surveillance are there, even when it comes to psychology. So thank you so much. I want to have a brief reflection, but I might come back to you, Dr. Denise, because Dr. Yasser joined us again. I'm a little bit afraid that his internet connection might get loose. So I will get back to you, Dr. Denise. So thank you so much for your inputs. Brothers and sisters, feel free to ask questions to Dr. Denise in the chat. We'll try to address them. So let me just bring in Dr. Yasser again. Just 1 second, Dr. Denise, and we will be back with you. Dr. Yasser, are you there?
Yes, I am back. Thank you.
All right. So Dr. Yasser, before your internet connection goes off, I thought that we just get your final perspectives and words, and then I will invite Dr. Denise to join again. Jazakallah khair, Dr. Denise. Dr. Yasser, please go ahead. Maybe if you, some of our colleagues said that if you just do not open up your camera, maybe the internet will be efficient enough for us to listen to you. So go ahead. The floor is yours, Dr. Yasser.
Inshallah, thank you very much. A couple of comments actually, because I think I spent a lot of time explaining the conditions in Gaza, and anyone who is interested, they can just look into the news and they will find out how terrible the conditions are. And I would like to move to another point, a totally different point. We have a saying in Arabic, 3 people cannot sleep, cannot go to sleep or cannot sleep even if they try. The one who feels cold, the one who feels hungry, and the one who feels afraid. So these 3 kind of people, it's very difficult for them to get some sleep, And this is one of the very old proverbs that we speak about. When we look at the international community at large, how they look at the Palestinian case, and how they look at what's happening now, we find a very big alternation in how people think about what happens. In one hand, the worst people, they don't put us like any other human beings. That's how we feel, We feel from the reaction of most of the countries in the international community that we are almost subhumans, and that was said almost loudly and clearly by the occupation. And this is unfortunately something that is felt by the Palestinians, because the 3rd week we are bombed day and night, and the international community is not really seriously addressing or requesting a ceasefire. In the contrast to that, some of the Western countries, even progressive countries, they are not even calling for a ceasefire. This is one point, which is really very strange to look into, not only from the human perspective, but from the psychological perspective. On the other hand, contrary to that, you will find a lot of people who are, on the other hand, talk a lot about our resilience, the resilience of the Palestinian people, the existence of the Palestinian people, the faith that the Palestinian people have. that trauma is not for Palestinian people, that PTSD will not be there for Palestinian people, that we are like, going all forward, challenging the conditions, and that we are continue to be enrooted in our lands, in our societies, and we are not. Yes, that's true. We are enrooted. We are like staying here, despite the suffering. But this shouldn't by any means underestimate the suffering of the Palestinian people. This shouldn't really make some people feel less pain when they see how things are dramatically happening in Palestine or in Gaza Strip. And this is not happening only for 3 weeks. It's happening not only for years, it's happening for decades. So please, I mean, let's how to say, try to uh, think that Palestinians are human beings. We have faith, yes. We are believers, yes. Most of us are Muslims. We have some Christians. We are alike in this fight, yes. But still, we are human beings. Our beloved ones are killed. Our beloved ones are wounded. Our beloved ones, our properties are destroyed. We have a lot of things that we are going through. This should be well understood and well respected. And then the third point, between here and there, the international community, individuals in the international community, and educated people and mental health professionals have a very simple and clear duty, which is to work on bringing the Palestinian narrative to the international community, because that could make a big change, that could make a big difference. The main thing that made me somehow optimistic in the last couple of weeks, when I see my friends and colleagues in the international community who continue to send me video clips of demonstrations that happen here and there, here and there, and here and there, in places that never thought to have a demonstration for the Palestinian people. Now, this is something very important. Palestinians, we have all the time had problems, even in publishing papers in articles and even scientific papers in international psychology journals. We all the time keep facing such problems. We are silenced every now and then whenever it's possible to silence us, and they are doing it. So there are many things for you guys to do. There are many things for you brothers and sisters to do. And then the last point, the fourth one, is what can we do? How can we intervene? How can we help? Well, that is something important. There are many challenges. There are many restrictions. There are many things that we need to keep in mind. I wouldn't really go to those details. It take a couple of hours to explain everything. Maybe we could write a letter about that. But to make things simple, means of communication is a big challenge. And then understanding the culture and challenges is another challenge. And thirdly, the language could be a challenge. So we don't want a communication to begin between Palestinians and international people that will make our people or even our colleagues feel more abandoned, because we don't want to really spend time on Zoom explaining how difficult things are for us. We don't want to just talk about our traumas, talk about our stressors, talking about our difficulties, just to educate people. We do it for the sake of educating people, but we don't want to do it as part of therapy or part of counseling or part of interventions. This is a totally different thing. So there are things really to be looked into, and I hopefully, and before this goes off again, the ISIP I think is an excellent platform for this kind of intervention, this kind of discussion. And hopefully you can build on these more than 300 people who have gratefully joined this meeting, so you can come out with something where the international psychologists can, in a sense, make a productive and solid intervention to their colleagues and friends and the people of Gaza Strip. So thank you very much. This is what I wanted to say.
Jazakallah khairan for your important inputs and giving us the ground perspective and from your own experience as well. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for you and for all of our colleagues in Gaza Strip and Palestine. And also, thank you for your inputs. We will definitely take those inputs with us, inshallah, and also the inputs from Dr. Denise. After Dr. Iman's presentation, we will go into breakout rooms, Dr. Yasser. We'll be going to, together with some of our colleagues in ISIP, as facilitators, listen to our participants in the session and our members today. And from the naseeha and guidance from you and Dr. Denise and Dr. Iman, we will do some action items and how we as an international movement can be of support for both all of you who are working on the ground, but also for our Palestinian brothers and sisters and for the Palestinian cause, of course. So we definitely appreciate the inputs, and it's good for us to do some self-reflection and some muraqabah, introspection, and to really do some, tazkiyat an-nafs, in the sense that sometimes when we're trying to be of service, it's also, as Dr. Denise said, is it because we want to calm down our own anxiety, or are we actually being of service? And I think to calm down anxiety are generally important. Of course, I do not minimize that for all of our brothers and sisters. I have it, many of our colleagues have it, all of our members, many of them have it, and that's a beautiful thing in the sense that it comes from compassion, right? From having mercy and feeling rahmah, but then it's also to do it in a way that will be of empowering our beloved brothers and sisters. So definitely, please could you mute your...
مثلا چون گفتی آقا مهجور معرفی کرده واقعا قیمت پایین برات زدم. این قیمتی زدم که
Please, I think that some people, that was actually, I think, Farsi, if I'm not mistaken. We're an international movement. We speak Arabic, English, Spanish, Habla como estás, and Farsi, and Turkish, and Urdu. So nevertheless, I think that one thing is for us as advocates and as your brothers and sisters to have resilience so that we can continue the plight of the Palestinians, because we saw like 2 years ago when we met you, Dr. Yasser, and after a while, people forget and they go back to their ordinary routines in life. But this time we shouldn't go back. We should always have the Palestinian cause with us at all time. And as you say, when the demonstrations are going on all over the world, this is something that is benefiting you guys and our beloved Palestinian brothers and sisters. So we need to do this as an ongoing task. And in that, dear brothers and sisters, a message I think from all of us is do not get burned out, because we, as Dr. Yasser said, this has been an ongoing situation for 75 years, since the Al-Nakba in 1948. And even before then, we have colonization of Palestine even before then by the British mandate. And, the history is there, right? So we need to be resilient in the sense that we need to continue the advocacy, because many of our colleagues, many brothers and sisters we meet, beautiful advocates, beautiful brothers and sisters, are getting burned out. A lot of people in the chat are writing about having anxiety. What can we do? People feel helpless, which is totally understandable. So we need to perhaps find resilience. That's why we do our healing circles and resilience circle, to support each other, to give each other sohbah, so we can continue being vessels of our Palestinian brothers and sisters and their aim for liberation, which is our aim for liberation, because we're one together as one ummah, but they have the ground perspective, so we are there at their service and connected as one ummah. So we need to be resilient and of course be inspired by the resiliency and the plight of the Palestinian brothers and sisters. So thank you for the reminders, dear Dr. Yasser. We really appreciate it. And you are doing such an amazing work, and we're very honored to be at your service, and also the Gaza Mental Health Network. By the way, brothers and sisters, we will share all the resources from the works of Dr. Yasser, Dr. Denise, and Dr. Iman by email. So if you haven't registered to this venue today, please register, and my colleagues will share the registration link in the Zoom chat, and we will share all the links to the organizations, resources, research, whatever that our panelists would like to share. Dr. Denise, let me invite you briefly before I invite Dr. Iman, just to get your final inputs before we go to Dr. Iman. Listening to Dr. Yasser and your own reflections, and perhaps last naseeha that we can bring with us to the action items. You already gave us a couple of good points that we can work on, but yeah, any last summary from you and conclusions?
One thing, and again, because I'm a professor, I do want you to question the methodology, right? Because what happened, this idea of individualistic, individualistic therapies as an answer is not the only answer. We know, and my own work, not only in Palestine, but in West Africa, in Latin America, is this idea of tragedy that affects a community also needs to be healed in community, right? So the idea of community-based interventions, as opposed to, is a very Western idea to think that sitting in a room with someone and talking about things will change my reality, right? the idea that testimony is also therapeutic, that community engagement, doing whatever we need to do to protect our community, to build our community, is creates change inside of me. The idea that again, we've been attacked as a community. It is as a community that we will also heal. So when we focus on that Western idea of therapy, talking about trauma, those kinds of things, there are also so many other ways, so many other lessons. I see folks from South Africa on here. I see folks from Bosnia on here. We have other models. We have other communities that have been through also this kind of trauma. So we need to look beyond the Western box of individual therapy to really go forward. I do want to talk a little bit this idea of resilience. I hate the word resilience. I really don't appreciate it. I think it helps the West to paint over the damage they are have done, and they say, okay, now everyone is okay, because in the end they are resilient. In our work, my work actually with domestic violence, we have done a study this past 18 months on domestic homicide in Muslim community in the United States. One of the biggest risk factors is coming from a high conflict area, as well as others. So we know that people, even if we can stand them up and even get them out of the country, those wounds are very deep and we need to address them. We cannot just keep saying, oh, but everyone is strong, everyone is good. We have to keep going, but keeping going does not mean that we are okay, right? So we really do need to fight this idea of resilience. Oh, yes, she walked out of the massacre and went to university, or they walked away from this. There are again, it may not look like Western PTSD, but there is definitely pain to the soul that needs to be addressed, and we need to open that up, and have those very horrific conversations. And sometimes accompaniment is all that we can do, is to let that person talk about the things that have happened to them, as opposed to trying to fix it, trying to put it back together, right? To acknowledge the things that have happened. So it really, Jazakallah khair. I am so grateful for the over 300 people on this call. I'm so grateful for the organization to be really trying to address this in all of the ways that you can. So we are grateful for that, and continue to support the efforts that are already happening on the ground, because they do need your support in terms of money, in terms of having their voices heard.
Dr. Denise, for your direct reflections, and I will be the first to listen to it and to revalidate, revalue the terminologies we're utilizing. I think this is very important because, as you say, PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome, this is not post for people and also, as you say, this is something that we work in ISIP, in the International Students of Islamic Psychology, and all of our initiatives is to bring other paradigms in how we work with mental health. I mean, even when we speak about mental health, health is not mental. This is compartmentalization of health. In an Islamic perspective, health is holistic. It's in the heart, it's in the soul, it's in the jasad, in the body. We have a holistic approach. So you're totally right. We need to reevaluate and maybe also decolonize our terminologies, and then we can bring it back to a paradigm which is grounded in our epistemological and ontological reality. And as you say, we have so many members. We have ISIP as a chapter in Bosnia. So I think it was Sister Fatima, Sister Vidlana from Bosnia who wrote their experiences as mental health professionals there. We have also people, from other parts of the world with a lot of experience in Turkey, in Afghanistan and Iraq that we can learn from. So thank you so much, Dr. Denise. We will share all of your research, all of the things you want through email, inshallah. And now we will also ask Dr. Iman. Let me just highlight Dr. Iman. And before that, brothers and sisters, we're sharing some resources. So from the naseeha of Dr. Yasser and Dr. Denise, we're going to do action items. So we're established a task force, which is called ISIP Crisis Support Group. Please join that task force. The link will be shared again in the Zoom chat. And then we will take the action items and do a lot of information. One thing that I already thought about, and actually this is ideas that comes from my colleagues at ISIP, is if we can do infographics, take some of the quotes from Dr. Denise and Dr. Yasser, infographics, and disseminate it on all of our networks, So whatever ideas and advocacy we can, and also to bring in new, paradigms and how we can work with health from an Islamic paradigm. This is one thing that we definitely want, and also learn from the experience of our colleagues, Dr. Denise and Dr. Yasser. So join these WhatsApp groups. These will be shared in the WhatsApp group throughout the session. All right, Dr. Denise, Jazakallah khairan. Please feel free to stay with us until the end. If you can't, we totally understand, and we will be in touch, and we will looking forward for the partnership with Peaceful Family Foundation as well. Inshallah, that's truly an honor. So Dr. Iman, let's go to Dr. Iman here. Just one second. All right. So Dr. Iman, without any further ado, we have already introduced you. But we have a lot of new members, so feel free to introduce yourself again. I mean, we did an introduction in the beginning, and feel free to start with your, talk, and also if you could also share some reflections from your own work with the documentary, that will be great as well. So without any further ado, the floor is yours. Welcome.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. Allow me to thank you all for attending. I don't know if it's as early as it is for me, like I prayed Fajr and I'm sitting in front of the computer. Alhamdulillah, inshallah, Allah make it, put barakah in this meeting. I want to actually tackle the situation a little bit differently, maybe from Dr. Denise, a little bit differently from Brother Yasser. And assalamu alaikum, Brother Yasser. It's good to see you. It's an honor to have you with us. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. I wanted to start with two quotations from the people of Gaza. The common thing that is happening, and people when they talk, they say, a shaheed is carrying a shaheed. A shaheed is praying over another shaheed. A shaheed is actually putting another shaheed in the grave. Our life is, we are a walking shuhada. And it's really very important, the terminology that we use, saying dead people. We are not dead, we are alive. We are a shaheed. This is very important. Another quotation from one brother in Gaza, I'm going to read it. He say, night has come for you, Gaza. The night comes when we do not know what will happen to us as we look at our children, as if we were saying goodbye. The night is coming and we do not have the never to get thoughts, though this night. Meaning, like, this is with his simple English, like he doesn't know if the night is gonna, pass by and they still alive or not. The night is coming and we are in the utmost prayers to God that this night pass without any loss of our relatives, families, neighbors. God bless you, Gaza. God ease what we are going through. When I talk to my family, to my sisters this morning while I'm listening to these lectures, finally, alhamdulillah, the internet came, and what my sister sent to me, her burned home, her dreams shattered. I lost 11 members of my family in this war. We still don't know about the rest of the family, who is alive, who's not. This is what is the conditions that people in Gaza living in. But what I want to ask is this condition or this war and this genocide, and let's call it as it is, it's a genocide that's being committed under the people or the Palestinians of Palestine. Is it in you? No, it's not. We know that over times it happened over and over again. It happened by the British in the 1917. It happened by the Israelis in 1948. It happened again in 1967. It happened again in 1973. It happened again in 1982 in Sabra and Shatila in Lebanon. It happened again in the first Intifada. It happened again in the second Intifada. It happened in the war of 2005, 2012, 2008, 2009, 2014, 2021. And now it's happening again in 2023. So my dad, who is 85 years old, has witnessed as a child until now all these wars. So his life, he's a walking trauma. His life is a walking war. He was a child in 1948 when they took his land from him, and he still carry holding on his memories with his pictures, with the coins, the old Palestinian coins that they used to use, with his key, with his all memories. And some of even his clothes from the war of 1967, he until now is holding into them. And today, again, his trauma is going on and on and on and on, not ending. Me, I was born in that trauma. I was born in that continuous war. So what Israel has created, whether we like it or not, a traumatized nation. I call it a traumatized nation. When you sleep, my memories of the first Intifada, you sleep and you have an Uzi on the top of your head, waking you up because the Israeli soldiers climb the walls of your home and they wake you up so they can arrest your brother, maybe beat up your mother, this is what they have created. Okay, this is really very important for us to understand. Looking at the situation in Gaza, and we also, it's very important that we have clear vision that there is no difference between Gaza, West Bank, Jerusalem, or the 1948. We all one body. We all one Palestinian body. Yes, in some areas it's worse than others. Yes, but however, we all one body and we all suffering and we are all experiencing these horrific experiences by the Israelis. In Gaza, it has been the most horrific because what they have created actually, again, putting words clearly, a concentration camp similar to what has been happened by the Nazi Germany with two doors. One door is controlled by the Israelis, the other one is controlled by the Egyptians. Nobody is allowed to go out or in to Gaza unless is permitted by the Egyptians or by the Israelis. The humiliation that you experience, even me, like now that I have an American so-called citizenship, when I go to Palestine, the humiliation you experience on the borders by the Egyptian is enormous, you cannot describe it. I mean, at one time they shot at us. They shot literally on the car. So this is what we are talking about. So they put us in a concentration camp. They call it a blockade. I don't call it only blockade. It's a concentration camp. And basically controlling air, sea, and land. There is no economic growth. They are causing poverty. They are causing food insecurity. And they also cause a mental anguish, disabilities, and among Palestinians. And whenever they like, of course, it's an open air for them. They can come and they can bomb us. So people hear about today bombing because it's intensified and it's strong. Last summer, I was in Gaza. They bombed us twice while I'm there, but nobody hears about that. You have drones on the top of your head 24/7, buzzing over your head. How these kids, this population is gonna actually be able even to sleep, even to eat, even to go about normal life when you have a drone on the top of your head buzzing 24/7, knowing that this drone might drop a bomb on your home right now or drop a bomb on you as you walk into the school as a child. Okay, so it's important for us when we talk about Gaza, not just to talk about the genocide, to talk about a long 75 to 80 years war and genocide that has been committed against Palestinians in Palestine. Palestinian children, they are, and let me talk about, actually, this is important. Let me talk about ADHD, ADD, autism, and all that stuff that we're talking about, that, and that there is, you know, in addition to trauma that is among Palestinian children. Let's ask us why. We know as health, you know, professionals that there is certain foods that actually cause ADHD. We know that certain material that is putting in certain food cause ADHD. Okay, let's look at what is really Israel, what so-called Israel is actually supplying Gaza before this intensified genocide happened to Gaza. I grew up in Gaza. My table for breakfast was a fresh tomato and a fresh cucumbers that my dad used to grow up from, the cheese that my mom used to make, you know, the eggs that my mom used to raise. But now you look, kids are eating chips and Pepsi and noodles. Because why? Because that's what the Israelis are allowing to Gaza. We know that these foods cause ADHD. We know that these foods cause mental illnesses. We know that they don't feed you, like, and doesn't give you the nutrition that you need. These are issues that we need, really, when we talk, we need to address. But because we are talking about mental health, and the brother Sayed specifically asked me that I concentrate also on my research. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about my research. When I was a child, and I was I was teenager, and I was in Gaza, I was shot. I have a disability until today because of that injury. I was jailed. My family, almost all of them, they were jailed by the Israelis, were beaten up by the Israelis. My siblings were also teenagers and children who were abused by Israelis. They used to come to our home and they beat my mom, my dad, my brothers, and they take who they want and leave who they want. As a child, nobody ever talked to me about my trauma. Nobody ever talked to me, how did you deal with this? How did you deal with that? And how your family dealt with that, you know? So when I had the opportunity to study psychology and start working on my research, when I looked at what has been happening, I thought at that time, 2014 was the most awful war that has been committed against Palestinians and against the children of Palestine. Little to know that there is a 2023 is coming and there's a genocide is going to be committed. At that time in 2020, 2014, they have what they, you know, most of the people who were killed were children. Most of the injury was among children. So therefore, I was like, I am gonna try to lift up their voices. I want to speak because nobody spoke or talked to me about my trauma. And by the way, until today, I still, like, here in the United States, everybody celebrate 4th of July, New Year's, whatever, with fireworks. I cannot bear fireworks. I cannot bear hearing like loud voices because it actually bring up my trauma. Okay. So I thought this is my opportunity to lift up their voices, to talk about these children and the people in Palestine, you know, experiencing what they are experiencing. So sure enough, this is why I started my research. And thankfully, I was able to meet, alhamdulillah, with Brother Yasser and his wonderful team who also helped me and supported me in my research. So let's focus on the research for now, and then we can go back to other things. In my research, my finding is 95% of the children in Gaza showed symptoms of anxiety, depression, and trauma. Now, it's really important for me to explain to you guys, and this is a terminology, it's my own terminology. I am not taking it from no research. I'm not taking it from nobody. It's based on my own research. A lot of people talk about PTSD trauma among Palestinians or among Palestinian children. I'm sorry, it is not PTSD. You are very wrong. It's not a PTSD. We know as a psychologist, we know as a mental health professionals that the first step towards healing a trauma is basically to take the victim out of the situations they are in, to put them in a safe area, right? That's just part of the beginning, the start of the healing. Let's imagine Palestinian children living in this concentration camp under the bombing, 24/7 for years long. What safe a place they are in to talk about PTSD. Then I thought to myself, okay, well, it's a continuous trauma. I said this to myself, it's a continuous trauma, and therefore we should call it continuous trauma because the research has been so far about PTSD and continuous trauma. But when I look at it and it's like, is it really continuous trauma too? No, it's not. It is continuous, yes, but can we just call it continuous traumatic stress? No, but this is like repetitive. This is over and over again. This is like people have nowhere to go. This is like subjugated by the Israelis. This is like unjust policies. It's colonial policies. It's drones. It's everything. So I came with a term. I call it complex continuous traumatic stress. And this is very important that we really say things as they are. Maybe some scholars, some people who are professionals in the mental health, they're gonna disagree with me, but that's how I see it. How can I call a trauma for 85 years for my dad, who been over and over, except that it's a complex, it's continuous, it's a traumatic, it's causing a lot. It's causing a lot of damage. This is really important. So when we talked, when I did my research, again, focusing on the mental health aspects so people can understand what is really happening, I found that there is 4 categories, or I divided into 4 categories. There is physical symptoms, there is emotional symptoms, there is cognitive symptoms, there is behavioral symptoms. Let's start one by one. In terms of emotional symptoms, children are actually suffering from anxiety, sadness, fear or worry, stress, depression. They are very easy to be irritated, hopelessness, crying, screaming, phobia related to their experiences, anxiety about health, feeling insecure, sensitivity to fear, fear of the future, fear of instability. In terms of their cognitive symptoms, they have confusion, lack of concentration, inattention, incoherent speech. Also, their ability to progress in school is being affected. If we talk about behavioral symptoms, we see that among these children, they cry. Some of them, they have difficulties to stay still. Some of them have difficulties to comply with home rules. Some of them have daydreaming, social withdrawal, wetting their bed. A lot of the kids, they wet their bed. A lot of them, they fear darkness. A lot of them, they have a flashback. A lot of them have nightmares. They wake up screaming. A lot of them, they even wouldn't really want to leave the side of their mothers. Difficulties sleeping and intrusions. Let me tell you about, for example, this one of the kids who I interviewed him, and he is only 8 years old, and he tells me, every time I hear the drone in the top of our home, I go running to the room And then what I do is like I shut down the light and then I go hide under the blanket. Then I ask him, so why do you shut down the light? And he tells me, because I'm scared that they're gonna see me, they're gonna bomb me. This poor child, they bombed him before. He has been shot in his in his stomach, in his back, and it's scars all over his body. If we talk about the physical signs that these kids have, it's funny because somebody told me this is not a symptom when I said that they have sharpeners and splinters in their bodies. The children and the population of Gaza, they are walking for years with splinters and fragments of the missiles in their body because they cannot afford to go and remove it, or they don't have the equipment even in Gaza to be able to remove it. They have scars, they have wounds in their bodies. Some of them, they lost their limbs. Some of them, they lost their eyesight. Some of them, they have excessive sweating. Some of them, they have headaches. Some of them have poor vision, and on and on and on, vomiting, swellings. I will never forget the picture of Ra'id and his son. Ra'id and his son walked towards me when I was about to interview them. And what happened is Ra'id was hopping on one foot and his son was hopping on the other foot. Why? Because Wael tried to run away from the bombing in 2014 with his family for safety. But as they were walking out to the street to run for their safety, they bombed them while they are walking. So he lost his brother, his sister-in-law, his nephews, his nieces, and then he lost his leg, and his son lost his leg and his hand and his eyesight. So these are some of the findings that I actually find. When you walk and when you talk about trauma and how it's affecting children, I was saying that I found out that in 2014, maybe 95% of the population or the children of Gaza are really traumatized. But today, I will say it's not 99.9, it's 100%. They created a traumatized nation. It's 100%. And we will not shy from saying that, but because this is a damage that Israel has done to every single Palestinian. And to me, it's in a sense, I feel like this is a crime, and Israel should be actually brought to justice for it. The children in Palestine, I had an interview with a sister and her, and just to sum it up for you, how it feels for them. A sister and her other sister. One of them is 14 years old. The other one is 4 years old. They came to the interview. I interviewed them in their home. As I walk into their home, the wall behind them is totally black because they were bombed there. They killed her mother. They killed her brother. The 14 years old have her sister on her lap, talking about her trauma experience and what happened in the war. But you know how she ended the interview? She ended the interview by saying, when I walk to the street, people always say, there's another war coming. There's another war coming. I don't worry about us. We are the old people. We don't worry about us. But what I worry about, and she tapped her sister 4 years old shoulder, I worry about these little children. How are we gonna take care of them? What they did to this child who's 14 years old, they stole her childhood from her. Now she's playing the role of being the mother. I saw this image the other day on TV, how also a sister who was about 12 years old also taken the role of the mother for 2 of her siblings. One, I think, was maybe 2, another one maybe was 4. And, you know, they killed her mother in the bombing, and she was like, okay, don't worry, I'm here. They stole these children's childhood. This is very important. Now, if Brother Sayyid allows me, and if I have the time, we are all asked what we can do. Do I have the time to talk about what we can do?
Of course,
Or
Dr.
I
Iman.
can, you know, as you wish.
We give all the space to you. You're more important than us. With your permission, Dr. Iman, maybe 5 minutes because we're going to go to the breakout room. Is it okay? 5 minutes?
Inshallah, inshallah. And I'll go over it really quickly.
Yes.
I just want, in terms of what we can do as Muslims, I want to change the whole narrative of how we think. It's really important. I'm going to start it from dua. We all say, please make dua. And yes, we all want to make the dua. But it's really important for us to stop the culture that among Muslims that is happening nowadays, that we send a long, huge dua on WhatsApp and we say, Ameen, 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 Ameen. I'm asking you, please, when you make the dua, make it from the bottom of your heart. Make your wudu. Go big in the door of Allah. Do your dua and try to do it in the times that the Prophet ﷺ taught us that this is the times for dua. Between wudu and iqama, in sujood, in qiyam, cry to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's take the sunnah of the Prophet as a guide for us. When the Huffaz were killed at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, what did he do in his hadith? Is it clear? He sat in the masjid praying and crying a whole month for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So please stop the culture of this WhatsApp and whatever saying Ameen, Ameen, and then you think that you make dua. That is not a real dua. Make the dua from the bottom of your heart while you're crying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to save his ummah and to save the people in Palestine. That's the first thing. The second thing, always check your niyyah. Make your intention is sincere for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so Allah can actually answer your dua. And if you have doubts in your niyyah, renew your niyyah, not once, not twice, not 10 times, not 100 times, until your niyyah is totally clear for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The other thing I wanted to talk about, please speak up, but at the same time, don't try to dismiss our experience as Palestinians. Do not try to dismiss and ignore and speak on our behalf as people who are under the bombing in Gaza. Because I noticed there is a culture of people focusing so much about themselves and their second-hand trauma and what they are going through and their sadness. And some of other what so-called speakers, shuyukh, ulama, whatever they want to call themselves, speaking on behalf of the people on Gaza, telling the people of Gaza how they should feel and how they should express their experience, and they never put a foot in Gaza, and they don't know how it feels to live in Gaza. They don't know what it feels to be beaten up by a soldier. They don't know what it feels to be killed by a soldier. So this is really important for people to understand that please outreach in your own community. See if there is people from Gaza around you. Doesn't matter where you are, and see and let them, put them in the front stage. Let them talk about their experience. Let them share their experience is really important. Let's learn a little bit. If we learn something from the Israelis, let's learn that. Israelis, when they talk about their so-called hostages, they don't talk about it, not the prime minister talk about it. They put the father and the mother of the hostage. They put the relative of the hostage to talk about it. But these Palestinians who lost their families member, lost everything they had, to talk about their experience is really very important. Despair is not an option for us. Despair is not an option. We have to stay strong, and we have to find, and we have to whatever it takes, to climb the mountains, to walk the distance so we can get our message across. It's really important to do that. Call things as they are. Call them. Genocide is a genocide. call them is a concentration camp. Do not try to beautify things so you can actually be accepted by others. No, this is the reality of the matters. Sometimes some of you say, oh, it's really hard for us to relate it to non-Muslims. Trust me, I'm noticing, mashallah, not a lot of non-Muslims are being engaged, and they're doing a lot of work. And I want to say, related to their personal knowledge, related to their personal experience. You know, when you talk about genocide, talk about Nazi Germany, what they did, because this is similar to what they're doing, what has been done to the Jewish people. When you talk about, Israelis, talk about in America, what has been happening to Native Americans. When you talk about aid, talk about like the money that's been poured on wars, while we have a whole huge homeless population, people with mental illnesses, people with drugs, and nobody is supporting them. And there's no money to support them. Therefore, they're staying on the streets. This is really important for us. We have to restart re-educating ourselves of how to tell the narrative. We cannot assume that the others understand the situation in Palestine or they understand the situation in Gaza. We have to relate it to them. Most of people haven't traveled to Gaza. Most of people haven't been in Palestine. Most of them, they haven't really experienced what we have experienced. This is why you need to open your heart and your mind and try to learn from your brothers and sisters from Gaza and from Palestine, so you can relate their experiences to the local people in the best manners that relates also to their daily life. This is really important. There's a lot of other action items. I'm not gonna try to steal your time, but on a positive note, I want you to think of this. Despite of everything is happening in Gaza, I want you to think, and this is my positive note, if people come and talk to you about the death in Gaza, talk to them about the life in Gaza. If people come to talk to you about Gazan people loved to death, tell them that they love life as well. If people come and talk to you about these people are being dead, talk to them about that they are not dead, they are shaheeds. And if people come and talk to you about, the bombs smell, tell them about the orange tree and lemon trees smell. Talk to them about the za'atar and yasmin smell in Gaza. Talk to them about the sage smell in Gaza. Talk to them about the misk smell from our shuhada. If people come and talk to you about the bombs in Gaza and the voices, talk to them about the voices of reciting Quran. If they talk to you about the buzzing drones, talk to them about the sounds of Gaza, of the birds of Gaza, of the waves of the sea in Gaza. If people talk to you about we do not love life, no, we do. We do love life as much as you love it, but we love Allah more than anything else. With that, I thank you.
Jazakallah khairan, mashallah, mashallah. May Allah allow us to disseminate all of the reflections and perspectives that you shared with us, dear Dr. Iman. Thank you so much for being with us and to allow us as a community to learn from yours work and your experience. And I think the last words of us also mentioning about and disseminating the lives of the brothers and sisters in Gaza and the daily lives, and that our brothers and sisters are alive. This is very important, and this is a great naseeha and guidance to all of us. So thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for being with us, and thank you so much for mentoring us from your experience and from your lived experience first and foremost. And also, we're honored that you've been so generous with your experience and with your reflections and perspectives. And yeah, I think that now, brothers and sisters, we're going to go into the breakout room. So if I may ask Sister Fatima to just join, and if you can just open up your camera, Sister Fatima, maybe you can just give a brief technical presentation of how the breakout rooms will function, inshallah. Thank you once more, Dr. Iman. I hope you can be with us until the end of this webinar. We're a little bit out of time, brothers and sisters, but you know what? We will continue, inshallah. We are here. So if you cannot be with us and you need to go, we fully understand. But as a movement, we're here until we have had our breakout rooms as well, because your inputs will be very important in the common work that we will do. Sister Fatima, would you like to share how we will move on to the breakout rooms?
Barakallahu fikum. I apologize, I'm not able to open my camera, but I will give the instructions. So first and foremost, to Dr. Yasser and Dr. Denise and Dr. Iman, on behalf of everyone who is here, there's been multiple messages, and just hearing from you all directly has impacted all of us, and which is why we want to have these breakout rooms. We want to have an opportunity now for the people who are remaining with us to go into a breakout room and to take what we've heard from our esteemed and our honorable speakers here who are Palestinian and who have from their hearts sharing with us what they've shared.
Facilitators. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear brothers and sisters, I want to first and foremost thank my excellent colleagues, Sister Fatima, Sister Zahra, Sister Safiya, Sister Aisha, Sister Sarah, Sister Eileen, and Sister Sima for helping out to facilitating the breakout rooms in such an excellent manner. I visited all of the breakout rooms just listening a little bit. So it was great, very important and lively conversations and discussions with regards to action items. I also want to thank all of our participants, all of our beloved sisters and brothers from all over the world for joining us and being part of the breakout rooms. I heard some of your reflections and thoughts and inputs with regards to action items, very valuable. And mashallah, you're all very knowledgeable. You all have a lot of expertise and experience with your professional backgrounds, with your lived experience. So we're very honored to have you all with us, dear. Excellent brothers and sisters. Thank you, sir, for giving out of your precious time. So I thought that we go from group to group just to present a little bit the summary of the action items. And please forgive us, brothers and sisters, for any shortcomings from my side. I take full responsibility of all the shortcomings, if there are any, and all the good comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, from my beloved colleagues, they're all doing an amazing job at the ISIP. So let's start with group one. Sister Fatima, if you would like to present briefly some of the reflections upon the action items. Please
yes, and Barakallahu fikum, we had a beautiful group of people and some reflections, and one was directly coming from the things that Dr. Yasser had mentioned and all of the speakers about lifting up the voices of our Palestinian academics, and Brother Ahmed Tahan from Turkey, thinking about ways that we can collaborate and keep ties with the researchers and the research from Palestine, being involved in cross-cultural work. Sister Kenza was mentioning that we need to actually listen to what war is, because a lot of times we're using words like trauma, but we don't fully understand that. And so she's, mashallah, also honored to help share some of the work that she's been doing for 20 years in war zones, and talking and lifting up voices of what war is, what trauma is, because sometimes as therapists, we might be using that word, but not fully understanding what it is, and giving, again, voices back to people who have experienced those things. Looking at models, I think this was also really important, looking at models in South Africa, in the Congo, in Ethiopia, and other places that have gone through these genocides as well, and apartheid. And there was also a request, which I think, about sending letters to well-crafted letters. And I think as ISIP, this is something that we can, inshallah, do with everyone who has shared here is actually crafting responses to psychological associations and having them kind of ready, then rather than people trying to craft their own, or individual psychologists trying to say something to their larger organization like the APA or other psychological associations. And then a sister in Lebanon actually shared some of the letters that have been shared. So I think it was Sister Summer. So thank you for sharing that. A needs analysis, and then also training professionals, because one of the sad realities that one of our attendees mentioned was that a lot of the people are being killed, are dying. And we want to make sure that expertise we are able to benefit from. So, being a psychologist, being a therapist, being a mental health professional in Palestine, who has been doing this for decades, we need to get that knowledge from them. So yes, barakallahu fikum to everyone who shared. And I did record those ideas, and it is on our collective action points. And again, we have some people who are willing and motivated to help follow through with some of these action items.
Jazakallah khairan, Sister Fatima, for facilitating in such an excellent way. And thank you so much, brothers and sisters in Group 1, for all these great reflections and inputs. And just to highlight what Sister Fatima said, we're going to keep on this work. So we're establishing an ISIP, a trauma healing task force, and a crisis support group task force. So we will continue with the work. And I just shared in the Zoom chat again, and the WhatsApp group link to the task force. This is not for the WhatsApp group for crisis support group. The WhatsApp group is only for discussions and resource sharing. This other link that I'm sharing now, if you guys check in the Zoom chat, your brothers and sisters, is for the task force. So you will become an active member of the organization committee. And Sister Aisha Jamal is the task force facilitator for that, together with Sister Anika. And all of our facilitators here are part of it as well. So join that group, and we will continue with the action items. What all the facilitators have done so far, dear excellent sisters and brothers, is that they have noted down all of your thoughts and inputs and reflections, and join so that we can continue with it. And I don't know if the facilitators have written who has come with which option or which thoughts or which action item. Maybe those names are also added to the list. Nevertheless, if not, please join, because we want your inputs as we will try to bring this into fruition, inshallah. Jazakallah khairan, Sister Fatima. Let's go to Group 2. Who was the facilitator for Group 2?
I was Sarah.
Sister Sarah?
Yeah.
Sister Sarah, go ahead, Sister Sarah.
Okay, so Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. It was lovely. Everybody had a lot to share. And I wish we had more time, because there were still people who wanted to share but couldn't because of time limitation. Anyway, so first of all, I wanted to share the message from a Palestinian sister that we had in our group. And so the message that she had that she want to share with us is that she wants everybody in the world to know that that Palestinians are not alone, and that we are one Ummah. And I think it was beautiful, and I wanted to acknowledge the Palestinian sister that we had in the group here. And apart from her, there were lots of reflections. So number one was educating ourselves on the use of language while advocating for Palestinians. So to make our narrative more effective, we can use how struggle. We can talk about how struggles are interconnected, so that more and more people can relate with the Palestinian struggle. So basically, educating ourselves on how to advocate for Palestinian cause in a way that's more relatable for everybody around. And then there was another reflection that that was really valuable, is that while advocating for our Palestinian brothers and sisters, to not only show just the traumatized side of Palestinians, but to also show the joys of their life, how they used to harvest olives, for example, right? So not to just show them as somebody who as a victim, but also some people who love life, who have life, to humanize them more, because the Western media likes to dehumanize Palestinians. And then there was this another reflection that if we have Palestinians in a circle, reaching out to them, being sensitive, asking them how can we support them at the individual level, at a personal level. And again, that despair is not an option. So taking care of own self, not for our own mental health, but so that we can continue advocating for Palestinians, because if we ourselves get too traumatized or too burnt out, then we won't be able to advocate for the Palestinian cause. So taking care of ourselves when we need to, so that we can show up actively for our Palestinian brothers and sisters. And in the last, I would just like to add one more reflection, that reflecting on Quran in these times, that how help came from Allah Ta'ala, keeping Palestine in mind. So reading Quran, reflecting on it, how victory has come in the past, keeping the Palestine conflict in mind. I think that's all. Yeah.
Jazakallah khairan, Sister Sarah, for facilitating in such an excellent way. An honor to have you as a colleague. And thank you, brothers and sisters in Group 2, for your very important inputs. And inshallah, we will bring this into fruition, all of these things. And for the sister from Palestine, yes, we are one Ummah. Actually, yesterday we had the Islamic Psychology Book Club in ISIP, and we decided last minute to change. We're reading right now a book of Dr. Abdullah Rahman, but we changed it to reading Orientalism with Edward Said. And I think one of the biggest problems in modernity is the dismantling of the Ummah, the dismantling of the one united Ummah under, that we have had since the days of the Prophet ﷺ until the downfall of the Ottoman Empire, and I'm speaking about, that we're all Ummah, but we did have also an institution of an Ummah. So we might not have it today, but we can be as one Ummah, and we are one body, as the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that whenever somebody aches, it's like one part of our body aching, in the Ummah. So we need to bring that about. So thank you, our beloved Palestinian sister, for reminding us about that. All right, Group 3. Who was the facilitator for the Group 3?
It was Dr. Seema.
Dr. Seema, would you like to share? If you unmute yourself. There are some questions in the chat while you unmute yourself. Sister Alia, with the book club, I will share the resource. Go ahead, Dr. Seema. Feel free to share the summary of Group 3.
Yes, mashallah, a lot of people were trying to share their thoughts, their feelings. A sister from Riyadh, she was talking about one of her acquaintance who was from Palestine, and their first-hand reflections about their history. So yes, what I have observed is that people were talking about wanting to help Palestinian people, but not feeling helpless because they don't know how to help them. So I have, Brother Ustad, you can tell whether how to help them. It's all about you. One thing more, there was a psychologist from England, and she was feeling very overwhelmed. Most of the people were talking about feeling overwhelming at that moment. And she was talking about suicidal thoughts. And I don't know why she mentioned that. I have written her name, Isra. I will try to contact her through you, brother. So yes, it was very, what would I say? There was a sister who talked about empathetic distress. There was another sister who talked about administrative detention. These difficult concepts which are difficult to understand for me as well. And a sister was talked about that the Palestinian Gaza friend of her, she said to her that when our children are born, we talk about being a shaheed. What is it to be a shaheed? We talk about the death right from the beginning, with a 4-year-old, with a 3-year-old. And that was something very overwhelming for me as well. You see? So, yes, life is not that easy. And resilience, talking about resilience is something else. And being resilient right in the moment of distress is something else. So yes,
Thank you,
that
Dr.
was what
Seema.
I have taken. Yes, that was what
Jazakallah
I have taken, and thank you very much.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Seema, for excellent facilitation. And thank you, brothers and sisters, for your inputs. We really appreciate it. There are some questions in the chat before I go to group 4. So what is the difference between the WhatsApp group and the task force? So the WhatsApp group of ISIP Crisis Support Group, your brothers and sisters, is just for us to connect and do resource sharing and discussions and do, like, it's just a general group. Of course, we will also highlight how you guys can join the task force from that group. The other group that I shared is the task force group. So that's where the active members, those who want to be part of the organization committee of ISIP's task force for trauma healing track and crisis support group, will be part of. And just briefly to explain the objectives, we're going to work with trauma healing approaches. So for instance, after the natural disasters that happened, the natural catastrophes that happened, like with the earthquakes in Morocco, the floodings in Libya, with the earthquakes in Turkey and Syria, and also in Pakistan last year, a lot of people needed support, from a mental health point of view, for instance. So we're trying to find, resources and even educate mental health professionals and first help responders and how they can work with counseling and support systems for people that are affected by, let's say, natural disasters. And of course, occupation, colonization, genocides, and wars that we're seeing right now currently happening in Palestine. But also we have a chapter in ISIP with brothers and sisters from East Turkestan, the Uyghur community, that are also suffering. We are doing a lot of things with our brothers and sisters in Sudan, because Sudan is going through a war right now, etc., etc. So by joining this task force, you will be an active member, part of the organization committee, where you can come with inputs. You can be part of, developing different projects and sub-task forces, etc. So this is the differentiating, to differentiate between the two different groups. The one group is for discussions, reflections, and resource sharing. The other group is to be an active member, inshallah. Hope that answers the question. Let's go to group 4, inshallah. Who was the facilitator for group 4?
That was me.
Oh, Sister Zahra, please go ahead. Jazakallah khair.
Okay. Yeah, we had a very good discussion. I think we could see that desire to help and that desire to do more and that helplessness start to transform into something tangible. And there was a lot of energy and a lot of determination and power in the contributions of my group. So one of the things that came up that I think has been mentioned before was understanding that we are one ummah. There is this concept of tawheed, and it encompasses not just one Allah, but one ummah, and that was very emphasized, that we're united in our efforts. Another one, though, was likewise, it's not just a Muslim issue, and we can't gatekeep our efforts. We have to acknowledge and reach out to non-Muslims who are also trying to make a difference, and acknowledge those efforts and not shun them. Also, again, using appropriate words and not being afraid to speak out, because this is real and this is happening and we cannot be afraid of it. Someone also brought up refreshing our practices of the Sunnah to refresh our own power as Muslims, which I thought was a beautiful way of putting it. Sister Aisha, I believe, also spoke about Palestinians in her community and how she can actually reach out to Palestinians in her community to see what they need and speak to them and validate their feelings, give them a platform to use their voices, and just see what they might need physically, And again, speaking about the Palestinian narrative from the Palestinian point of view, not from our own point of view, the importance of educating others and posting and continuing to repost and not letting the momentum die. Devising community interventions. And again, what was brought up, which I thought was a beautiful idea, was setting aside an actual time, setting aside a set time every day to make dua or make salah for people in Palestine, and doing it as a family effort. So setting aside like Fajr time to read a Surah Fatiha or Tahajjud with the family for the people in Palestine. And what I thought was absolutely beautiful was someone said, commit good deeds with the intention of the reward going to the people of Palestine, and be generous with what you have to ask Allah to give Palestinians. Don't hold back, be generous. And make dua with yaqeen, and have faith that you'll be able to make a difference, that your dua does make a difference. And try and make it with sincerity and catch the most powerful times to make dua. So yeah, there are a lot of beautiful intentions, a lot of beautiful ways of transforming helplessness into tangible action.
Jazakallah khairan, Sister Zahra, for excellent facilitation, for a great summary. MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Thank you, brothers and sisters in Group 4, for your important inputs. Inshallah, hope we can, work with all these inputs, inshallah. And of course, to always have the intention and always have our brothers and sisters in our du'as are one of our best weapons, indeed. Jazakallah khairan. Sister Fatima, could you in the Zoom chat just share the link to the feedback form and to the registration form? Because some
Yes.
participants are asking to access the resources. What we will do, we will share even the
Yes.
action items to all of you, if you want, through email. And also what we would do is also to share resources from our speakers today, Dr. Iman and Dr. Denise and Dr. Yasser. For instance, their organizations, their research, all their works, And also Dr. Denise wrote a very excellent message on different social media platforms with regards to teletherapy. So we might also share that with you all. So register yourselves, please. Thank you, Sister Zahra. Thank you, Group 4.
Yeah,
yes,
I'm putting the evaluation form, and on the evaluation form there is actually opportunities for people to join. A number of people have mentioned, like, what's the difference between the crisis support WhatsApp group, as Jamaluddin has explained. So there's going to be links in that form that I'm putting in as well, that you can just also mention if you want to be a part of the organizing committee as well.
Jazakallah khairan, Sister, for sharing that. We really appreciate it. So let's go to Group 5, inshallah. And Group 5 was led by who?
Me.
Sister Aileen, please go ahead.
Yeah. Shall I share my screen shortly, because I cannot do it by heart?
Or maybe you can just read it out if it's okay.
Okay, I'll read it out. Yeah. So let me see. Yeah, we had a few contributions. Unfortunately, we're cut off. Our last speaker is now, I saw he was writing in the chat, it's Neil. I think his point was that we should really try to challenge authorities more, though for those in the West, that's actually, we can really make a difference there. And he was a bit disappointed about civil disobedience. So there's some work to do. That was his remark. So very important, because that's really activistic work. So Sister Jane from the Philippines said, well, we should actually educate more people about, especially mental health workers, about the community-based frameworks. She herself has worked with those such a framework in the Philippines, and she said, actually, our Ummah here has gone through similar things, what's happening to the Palestinian people. So she's very much firsthand experienced. And she's just texted me that she joined our task force, alhamdulillah. So we'll be hearing from her, inshallah, Sister Jane. She even offered to give some education on psychological first aid. So that will be amazing. Inshallah, we'll be in touch, Jane. Sister Aisha from UK said, again, that sentence, despair is not an option, that really hit most of us, I think. So faith is the most protective factor when dealing with trauma. And she said, we should all work on aligning the Islamic framework to our mainstream treatment. So the Islamic psychology. The remark, we belong to them and they to us, that hit her as well. And she said we should be resilient like them. We should learn from the Palestinian people in how resilient we should develop a little bit of that ourselves, to keep posting, to keep making a difference, and to keep contributing to changing the narrative. So it's never a waste. One post, one talk, it will never be in vain. Let me see, there was one sister I believe she was from Indonesia. She said that, we should be their voice if they are shut down, if their internet is cut off, we should be continuing to pass on their message. And what I found very striking was the remark, I think it was Dr. Denise Bert, who said that Palestinians actually are very concerned about our mental health. And then she was alluding to those who are outside of Palestinian and just, on the outside looking and watching, observing, because she said, we know our reality, But once, the headlines are gone, most of the Ummah, forgets. And actually we should be, they're concerned about our mental health, in the fact that do we actually realize what's going on? And so we should be learning from the Palestinian people about what life is all about. So that really struck me. So those are our points. Thank you very much, all those who participated.
Jazakallah khairan, Sister Eileen, for excellent facilitation summary, and thank you for all those who participated in Group 5. Thank you for your valuable inputs. We have one group left. I just want to mention that Brother Ahmed in Group 1, who spoke about research, he's actually part of ISIP's research center called Al-Balkhi Institute of Islamic Psychological Studies and Research. So if you guys are interested in research, you can reach out and be with Brother Ahmed through the Al-Balkhi Institute, inshallah. So feel free to join whatever groups you join, and we will add you guys to that team as well, inshallah. All right, last but not least, we have Group 6, and I think that's Sister Aisha. So please go ahead, Sister Aisha. Is it okay, Sister Aisha, that you don't do it by sharing your screen and just read it out? Your microphone is muted, Sister. Sister Aisha, your microphone is muted.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Is it okay that you read it out without sharing your screen?
It feels that it's going to be difficult because I don't have it in the, in my copy.
Okay, go ahead.
It's
no
okay.
problem. It's okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so what I feel is that, the group, mashallah, shared a lot, and they sort of framed it around Deen. So Deen was something that came again and again, and, they touched upon, like other groups, mashallah, the spiritual and the physical and the social aspect of how they could do work and do khidmah. I think there were a lot of takeaways from the lectures, and I could feel this energy in the group. And some of the things that the other groups also shared, they started off with testimonials of Palestinians and how their voices needed to be heard, and their perspective needed to be shared. Again, how we can make du'as with pure niyyah was something that was also brought up from the lectures, and how we could make an impact by checking in with our niyyah and doing du'as. Power of social media was something that the group felt that we shouldn't underestimate, and use it well to re-educate. Again, don't, not to burn out ourselves. Instead, think about advocacy and action. Take breaks and then come back and do something. Steps for ceasefire, those were something how to make impact in the, wherever we could push, where it moved. Be black and white in our narrative, call a spade, call a genocide. Uplift each other so that the divide and mentality, the divide mentality would fail. So it's important that, the others, whoever is trying to divide you, come out of that and present yourself as one ummah. And we've seen it, how we came together today, and in so many other ways that we can come together. We need to show solidarity. People need to break silence, individual activism, pushing governments, learn Palestinian history, use economic boycotts, equip our Iman, nourish our Iman, self-reflect on our sins, and improve our relation with Allah. Be mindful of the day of judgment and work forward with this thought. The change of narrative is in school, and one thought that was just coming right towards the end was about parents, even in the Western world, because the schools have their own narratives about the history. It's important to teach the children and get to them first before, they're taught in school a different narrative in a manner that they understand and they can know what's happening. So yeah, these were some of the thoughts shared by my group. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khairan, Sister Aisha, for your excellent facilitation, for a great summary. And thank you, brothers and sisters in Group 6, for all of your excellent inputs as well. Could you stop sharing your screen, Sister Aisha, please? Thank you. And then we will just, so we're coming to the end of our almost 3-hour webinar. SubhanAllah, this has been an important webinar, important gathering, an important sohbah and companionship for our beloved Palestinian brothers and sisters. So I want to thank all of you for participating today. Brother Stewart, you wrote to me privately. We have Brother Stewart with us. He is one of the colleagues of Brother Dr. Yasser from the Gaza Mental Health Foundation. So I'm very honored to have you with us, Brother Stewart. So if you write your WhatsApp number to me, I will reach out to you. We will love to support the Gaza Mental Health Network that you guys are working with. And, we as a movement, and I think I speak from all of our colleagues here, we want to be at your service. So Brother Stewart, if you can just write your WhatsApp number to me, I would really appreciate it. So just write a private message to me in the Zoom chat. Jazakallah khairan. Thank you so much, Brother Stewart. Brother Stewart is a board member of Dr. Yasser's foundation, the Gaza Mental Health Network. And this is one of the most important networks inside Gaza when it comes to mental health services. So we're indebted to them, actually, and we want to support them, inshallah. And honored to have you with us, Brother Stewart. So yeah, I think this is it for now. I want to thank all the panelists. I want to thank Dr. Yasser, Dr. Denise, and Dr. Iman for their excellent remarks, inputs, reflections, and thoughts. We learned a lot. I personally need to revalue the way that I communicate, the way that I sometimes paraphrase things or use different vocabularies. We need to almost deconstruct the psychological theories and psychological analyzation methods and even diagnosis, in all honesty. So this is first and foremost naseeha that I will implement for myself. So I'm very grateful, and I'm sure we all had some aha moments as well, thanks to our panelists. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve all of our Palestinian psychologists and mental health professionals. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve all of our Palestinian brothers and sisters. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of those who have passed away as shaheeds and as martyrs. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring ease and relief to all of our brothers and sisters in Palestine. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala free Palestine. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow all of us to unite and pray jointly in Masjid al-Aqsa. Ameen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow the Palestinians to access Masjid al-Aqsa so they can pray Taraweeh prayers there during Ramadan, so we all can walk freely in the land. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to embody the prophetic example of how to handle each other, how to engage with diversity, how to engage with solidarity, how to always stand up for the oppressed. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala purify us so that we always will stand up for justice and always be there in the forefront for the plight of the Palestinian people. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to learn from all of our beloved brothers and sisters who've been through suffering, whether it's colonization or whether it's genocides or war crimes or ethnic cleansing or whether it's natural disasters and catastrophes. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to learn from our beloved brothers and sisters in South Africa and how they fought the apartheid system. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to learn from our brothers and sisters in Syria, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, in Yemen, in Sudan, in Algeria, in Morocco, in Myanmar, in East Turkestan, in Hindustan, in India, and rest of the world. We have a lot to learn from a sacred tradition of how to deal with trials and tribulations from an Islamic psychological point of view, how to deal with bala from an Islamic psychological point of view. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to be even better in our representation of our sacred tradition, of the prophetic tradition, of the Quran and Sunnah, of all the scholars in the past that have established so much knowledge that we can implement to bring healing to the Ummah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala free all the oppressed people all over the world and allow Jerusalem and Al-Quds to be the city of the Ahl al-Kitab, so that Muslims and Christians and Jews can pray in their sacred places and the sacred spaces in Jerusalem with respect and with dignity with one another. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow all Palestinian Muslims and Christians and Jews and whatever ideology that you are adhering to as Palestinian to reach freedom and self-determination and sakina and tranquility in your hearts, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unite all of us once more in different occasions so that we can bring about action items and we can implement these action items. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to they have conferences in Gaza when Gaza is free, have conferences in all part of Palestine when Palestine is free, inshallah. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unite us towards all types of oppression. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for all Muslims that are facing Islamophobia, all Palestinians that are facing anti-Palestinian sentiments, and all Arabs that are facing anti-Arab sentiments. May Allah allow us to fight all types of racism, whether it's Islamophobia or anti-Semitism or Afrophobia and anti-Black sentiments or anti-Roma sentiments and all types of racism. May Allah eradicate all racism and all fascism and all imperialism and all colonialism. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to unite as an ummah, both physically and metaphysically and spiritually, and learn from the concept of ummah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take away all boundaries that are dividing us into ethnicities and races, and instead see the beauty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's diversity in different cultures, and embrace culture and urf, and at the same time see the commonality amongst us as Muslims and also amongst us as humanity at large. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to walk the paths of the Anbiya and the Prophets. As we know, Palestine is the space and the land of the prophets. Many of the great Anbiya and many great walis of Allah have lived in these sacred spaces. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to unite once more. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Let's recite Surah Al-Fatiha together, inshallah, brothers and sisters. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين